Good morning, good afternoon, good day, everybody. My name is Toyan, and I'm super excited to have the first episode of 2022. I have a full glass of coffee. Lubomila, what about yourself?
Same here.
There you go. And I'm super excited to welcome as the first guest of the season, the first guest of this year, somebody I deeply admire for who she is and for the fantastic work that she does with her company Plan A for the Planet and all other projects that she's involved in. Lubomila and I had a chance to meet in person for the first time, I think, last year in at 15 Seconds Festival in Graz, and we've been in touch ever since. She has a crazy schedule, but I'm super happy that he had a chance to join this podcast today. Lubomila, how are you this morning?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy and excited for our discussion.
Amazing. Why don't you tell the audience who are you? Kind of lead us a little bit through your background. Where did you grow up? Like, briefly, and then what brought you into doing what you do today?
There's a lot of topics to cover. My name is Lubomila. I am born in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. And what kind of brought me to what I am doing now is actually after I was Uh, at 17, essentially, I left Bulgaria, and then after that, I went to study abroad. I've been living in 7 different countries. I was in the UK predominantly, but also Austria, Germany, Spain, Thailand, and essentially, in all these different places, I have been normally and kind of solely focusing on finance. This is what I studied. This is what I worked on. I was in investment banking, VC, and also fintech as my last stunt. But in 2016, actually, I was on a trip where I was supposed to learn surfing. And what ended up happening there was that instead of surfing on the first day, I ended up collecting trash from the beach, which kind of tainted or gave essentially a bit of a stamp to my trip, but also didn't leave me even after the trip as a topic. And I became a bit obsessed with climate change within the span of the 12 months post this trip, and essentially decided to educate myself, really understand what is the impact of people on this planet. I care deeply about wildlife, and that's kind of what triggered it to start with. And essentially, within the 12 months of self education, speaking to a lot of academia people, speaking to also a lot of just normal citizens that maybe had concerns, predominantly didn't. I quickly understood that this was a topic that I held really dearly to my heart, and I kind of felt that from all the research that I had gathered and done, there was a lot of evidence that there was not enough work done, especially from a business mindset perspective. So I decided to spend my time on doing something for that. And essentially in 2017, I quit my job, quit London, where I was living at that time, moved to Berlin, and set up Planning.
Why Berlin?
Berlin is a very special place. I don't know if all the people in the audience have been there, but for those, I'm sure it has given them a different reason to like it or dislike it. It's quite of a polarizing city in many ways, but it's also a very welcoming city. It's a city where you can find different perspectives. There's a lot of activism, but there's also a lot of business. There's a lot of tech. There's investments these days more than ever. And essentially, the city has a lot to offer to anyone at any point of their life, especially at the time when you're searching for a lot of answers. I can promise you that definitely a lot of my friends in my friends circle all came to Berlin through very serendipitous circumstances. Um, so Berlin at that time in 2016, 17, because I came to investigate in 2016 and then 2017, I decided to settle here, was one of the cities I was considering. I was looking at Amsterdam, also at Copenhagen. And what I liked about Berlin was that within 2 weekends that I came, I got a free co-working space. I got a free lawyer that was going to help me actually build the first like documentation for the company. And I also found people that immediately invited me to like parties for a few weeks down the line. So I was like, this is a sign. And after that, essentially, the city seemed to be giving a lot. But then maybe on the flip side of the professional story, there was definitely a lot of excitement for the climate change topic from more an activist perspective, which I didn't find in London. So I definitely felt the need to connect to a city where the environment would be pushing this agenda and maybe would be a bit more receptive to a business model that is a blend between doing good but also making money.
So was there a defining moment? Was that the surfing experience where you kind of ended up cleaning the beach? Was that a moment, or was there another moment in which you were fully sure that this is what you're gonna do, this is what you're gonna focus on, this is, I found my purpose, I wanna do this thing?
I'm not the kind of person that believes in aha moments as a sole entity in your life, which defines you for the rest of your existence. I do believe in serendipity, though, and I think as you build up yourself down the line as a human, as a person of experiences, there's things that trigger you, and they trigger you exactly at the moment when they have to, because you've learned enough to know that this is something that you should perceive as important. So, in the context of the topic that I'm managing my time within at the moment, I found this beach to be quite defining because it really made me feel quite helpless in a way that I was sitting on this beautiful beach, which was supposed to be the most famous one, Banana Beach in Agadir, and I was just surrounded by trash. And this was the place which offered the biggest waves, and all the professional surfers were going there and so on. And you're thinking this trash is a combination of the stuff that came out of the ocean, and it's also the stuff that people just left like a few days ago or a few weeks ago. And this is a place which is economically benefiting from the beauty of nature, from its conditions and its offer. How are we not kind of respecting that? And that really made me think. It triggered me a lot to want to learn more, because I'm the kind of person that really wants to have a base, have a foundation before I start making opinions about stuff. And climate change is definitely something you should learn a bit of science before you start talking about. So that got me thinking, but I think it was a build up. And there was a few things that in my life at that particular moment that were maybe triggering me to think of myself differently. Brexit happened at the same time. I was in a relationship that I wanted to end in any case, and there was friends leaving London because of Brexit. I was to some extent unhappy with my current job because there was a lot of changes that happened after the financing round that they had just gotten. So my life was just asking me to think differently, and I guess this speech was a way to get some answers.
This is a fantastic story, and I think one thing that everybody listening perhaps is thinking of is, what exactly is the current situation? I mean, you mentioned you need to first study things and go more in detail with data and those kind of things. Can you maybe paint us a picture of how bad things are at the moment when it comes to climate change? Because we all hear climate change, it sounds like this is out there, but we don't have to take care about it now, but it's coming, but hey, let's live our lives. Can you give us some data, some maybe more tangible information about what's the situation out there?
Yeah. One thing that I would like to clarify to start with is that for me, studying science is not a condition for anyone to engage with the topic of climate change. Any given citizen or business can actually take action today. It is more for the professionals like me that have decided to also build a business case around that. I think it's really important that you spend time on educating yourself about climate change from a scientific perspective, because then you become knowledgeable about the consequences of the choices you make in terms of the business model you define and so on. The state of the art at the moment is sadly really well captured for decades now. And this has been done by many scientists, but these days also a lot more by journalists. People are giving a lot of voice to the people on the ground that are experiencing climate change already. Bottom line is that climate change already exists and it has been existing for a long time, but now it's starting to hit the places where historically we've thought we're going to have to wait for decades. So the Western world is starting to see climate change extensively on daily, monthly basis. 2021 was the year where we've seen the biggest increase in natural disasters in also form and shape of wildfires. There's been a lot of different exaggerated events like floods and so on. All of these events are natural occurrences. They've been existing before climate change exists, but they are extended in length and in impact by climate change. So climate change essentially increases the implications of these negative events. So a flood is in any case going to happen because this is the way nature, again, rebalances itself. But the strength with which these events now happen is one that is impacted by climate change. For anyone that maybe understands it in a consumption perspective, at the moment, we as humanity are consuming 1.7 Earths, which means that essentially we're consuming close to double of what the planet can offer us. And what we consume normally in the usual circumstances is actually a lot because we have agriculture that feeds us. We have any kind of timber, which is actually all of the trees that we cut to be able to build furniture, whatever it is. We have fiber that we produce in order to make clothes. And if you think of these examples in the context of the industries that they represent, this is the food industry, this is the furniture industry, this is the built industry, so real estate and so on. And the final one is fashion or anything that is related to textiles. All of these industries are benefiting from the fossil fuel industry, which is essentially the one that allows them to like transport different products and to build them because the factories also need fuel in order to be able to operate and so on. Essentially, the world at the moment at scale operates on coal, which is kind of this, as it's called, like the brown energy, which essentially is one that is incredibly polluting and is producing majority of the things that we have in our day-to-days, the tests that we do now because of COVID and so on. China and India are actually relying on coal predominantly, and China is continuously opening new coal plants. So bottom line, situation is not particularly great. We're consuming more than we should, and we have a very strong dependency on industries like the fossil fuel one, the fashion one, also the built industry, and also the agricultural, which are kind of, these industries are the ones that are representing more than 80% of the emissions on this planet. And at the moment, with all of the measures that are being taken on a legislative level or on a consumer level where people become more conscious, we're still nowhere close to any carbon reduction. We've only achieved carbon reduction during COVID, which now bounced back fully within just the last few months.
It is one of the main challenges, the fact that there's too many stakeholders involved, and we should act as one whole, as a humanity. What do you think is the way forward? How should we start acting differently in order for us to kind of decrease the climate change effects?
The different stakeholders and the interplay between them is the key to our success in addressing climate change. It is incredibly important that we engage citizens, businesses, governments, scientists, NGOs together and get them to contribute with their knowledge, their time, and their resources in order for this to be the most optimal way for us addressing climate change. At this state of the climate change disaster that is kind of already in play, we have sadly no chance of fully stopping climate change, but rather we only have the chance to diminish or at least reduce the negative impacts of certain key elements of that. So we can reduce the increase in natural disasters as they outplay. We can prepare our infrastructure to be better equipped for these kinds of disasters, where flooding essentially as an example, can overtake a city. The city can be uplifted. There's many different technologies that can help with that. So this is how we need to think about it. How is this playing out today? I would sadly say there's still a lot of voices that speak differently, that speak a language that is not understood by the others, which also leads us to wasting a lot of time along the way. And that's what we plan on, and that's what we play as a part with Plan A in order to support these stakeholders to start speaking the same language.
Tell me about Plan A. What is Plan A for the planet? Did you personally come up with the name? What does it mean? And basically, what do you guys do?
There was a lot of serendipity in my life when Plan A was kicking off. I was having constantly all these inspirations and constantly these ideas. I still keep something that I call the idea box, which is essentially like this massive spreadsheets with hundreds of entries that were ticking off one after the other in the course of the growth of the company. But that was kind of, I had I don't know, the universe dumped on me some ideas that then I gathered in a spreadsheet that hopefully we'll be able to realize in the coming years. I did come up with the name, and Plan A has always, since day one, had the vision that there is no Plan B. And what this means is that we need to utilize technology and science in order to make businesses able to make better decisions. That's what we do. In practice, what this translates into is a software as a service platform that enables businesses to track their net zero journey and learn how to improve along the way. So they can calculate their emissions, they can calculate their impact on the planet, and then automatically, through the use of machine learning and science, we've been able to build a technology that tells them what are the levers for improvement, how long is it going to take them, and then what is the pathway for this to be achieved, and what are the different activities they need to implement in order to hit their targets and be a sustainability leader.
And how's the feedback so far? You guys started not so long ago, and you've already been growing quite rapidly. But what's the feedback from large corporations, from governments, for organizations? Do you find the support, or is it still difficult to get people on board?
If you would have asked me this question 12 or 15 months ago, I would have given one answer. Today, the support that we can access is tremendous. And that is not because of anything else, but again, this interplay between a lot of different things that happened in the last 12 months. There's been the EU Green Deal, which really pushed the mindset of businesses that there's a necessity for them to change. There's been a lot of consumer, so to say, outcry for products that are unsustainable. There's also been a lot of employee activity where employees have been engaging their employers to start changing, sometimes in a more of an aggressive way with like protests and so on. And finally, there's been a lot of investment shift from the traditional investment models to ESG ones, which include this environmental, social, and governance element to it. This all is now leading to a lot of increase in the space in which we operate in terms of investments. There's also a lot of interest by people that want to join. We've never had issue with hiring people. We've always had a waiting list of people wanting to join, which is something I'm super proud of because people really align with the values that we offer as a company, the mindset that we offer as a company. And finally, there's been just over the last 12 months, a massive increase from businesses that want to work with us. We work with companies of the likes of BMW, Societe Generale, European Commission. We have other clients like Grover and 26 and so on. And essentially, all of them are willing to kind of put their mind to improving on the sustainability topic. So a lot is going on in the space, and it's all, I would say, incredibly positive. You could always ask for a further increase in speed, but we're super happy to see all of this interest and excitement for the space.
That is great to hear that actually there's a lot more interest coming in this direction, and it should be this way. And you've also co-founded or founded Greentech Alliance. Could you also tell us about that, and what is it? Who's part of it? Who should consider becoming part of this alliance?
The Greentech Alliance is a project that was born 2 years ago that now is an NGO that supports businesses that have a green product or process that they're developing. So green tech startups to grow, to get access to capital, expertise, and visibility. In a nutshell, it's now a community of 1,300 startups from all over the world that address different challenges related to climate change. As part of the community, once you're accepted, because there's an interviewing and selection process, you get to be given the possibility to access more than 200 venture capital funds, also a lot of press people, journalists, amazing experts in impact as well. And all of these have donated between 1 and 3 hours a month to support this community and essentially enable them to grow with the speed that it should, because obviously we don't have a lot of time in this particular domain.
So basically, everybody who's in that kind of space, they're welcome to get in touch and to check it out and see how they can be part of it, or is that kind of a closed community in many ways?
Everyone is welcome to apply. The website is greentech.earth. So you just go on there and you fill in a form. We do have an interview process, which is a 15-minute interview where we check for greenwashing. We have only accepted 1,300 startups, but we have already looked at more than 5,000. So our selection process really focuses on, is the company following science? Do they understand what's greenwashing? And I'm making sure that they do not in any way either encourage it or offer it with their product offering. And essentially is a kind of a secured place where we make sure that the founders are at the core of everything that we offer. There's no commercial activities. We don't have a business model, so we don't charge any corporates to push their agendas on us and so on. It really is for founders by founders.
I love the power of communities, and super. One of the reasons I admire you, on top of all the other things, is actually building these communities that are really from the heart, really honest, and not trying to serve somebody and to benefits in some kind of a monetary way. I mean, it's all about, okay, this is the business part. This is where we make kind of our thoughts, but then again, this is something that really needs to be addressed, and coming together is the best way to do it. One question I have is I think for many people, they want to help, they want to be part of doing their part when it comes to climate change, but for the ordinary human being like myself and for the small business owners, they that they want to do something, but they don't know what. How can they support our combating of the climate change? Like, what would be some pieces of advice for the ordinary human being out there?
I would give three particular suggestions or ideas that one can decide to pick up all one after the other, or maybe just one. The first one is related to the way you spend your money. People buy on daily basis products. This could be the lunch that you have. This could be maybe the furniture that you have. Maybe this is something related to your fashion choices and so on. All of these companies have a lot to tell you if they are doing something good for the planet. If they're not doing much for the planet, most likely it's not even on their website. It's not part of the value proposition. So make sure next time when you purchase something, you look at the packaging, you look at the website of the company, and just consider what are the impacts that they're considering that they make on the planet, and how are they planning on mitigating them or already doing so. The second one is related to voting. Each one of us is a citizen in a country, and each one of us has the freedom to vote. And actually, it is sometimes forgotten, but we have voting opportunities also on the European level as part of being part of the EU, or we have it on a country level wherever we're based. And in all of these circumstances, there's someone that is working on the green agenda. I'm not the person that is going to be telling anyone to vote for anyone, but there's definitely now enough movement in the political sphere on the topic, where like really mainstream parties that historically have never spoken about climate change speak about that. So that's something that you should consider, because at the end of the day, governments sit on a lot of budgets, and they also go to big conferences like COP26, where essentially they have big choices to make, and a lot of influence to deploy, so to say. And then the final one is related to the way you choose where you work. I'm not suggesting for everyone to start working in a company like Plan A. There's not that many of us to be able to employ the whole planet, but any company, as the companies we work with, actually has the chance to be acting on climate change. And most likely, you simply need to ask either your finance or HR team, or just anyone that is related to the sustainability topic or is taking this job as a side activity that is not defined within the boundaries of the job description, about what is the activity of the company. And if it doesn't exist, just kick it off yourself. There's actually a lot of cases where companies come to us through their employees, where the employees really essentially say, there's been nothing done so far about climate change. We really want to do something. I am leading the green team, even though my job is in engineering, and I want to use your software because I really want to be able to track things and then start improving. So these are a few ways in which people can engage: buying, voting, and then working for a company that kicks off something related to sustainability.
This is very helpful and very practical, Lubomila. Thank you for sharing. I think it really comes down to setting this as a mindset and actually spending a bit of time to think about, what can I do? What could be my role, my little role? We had a fantastic guest at the other podcast, The Leaders Who Care. Her name is Masami Sato, and she's the CEO and founder of an organization called B1G1, Buy One Give One, which is an amazing nonprofit organization. You got to check it out. It might be some good synergies there. But basically, their main message, their core message, was about the power of small, the power of doing small things. If we all come together, everybody does something good, it's way better than one person doing tremendous amount of good, right? So don't underestimate the power of the small things, the small actions, the small choices that you do on a daily basis. So
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
definitely. So okay, Ludmila, you just mentioned you're running Plan A for the planet. I've seen you traveling like crazy all around the place, doing conferences, attending climate forums. You are part of the Greentech Alliance. You have to run a team. You recently been raising funding. It's so many things I can imagine on your agenda. How do you prioritize? Could you share with our audience, like, what do you have a process? Do you have a method of setting the objectives on a long-term perspective, but then bringing it into the day-to-day and deciding on what should I do first?
So I always work with the principle of 80-20, where essentially 80% of what I do is really defined, and it's related to the OKRs of the company, and is related to really the structure and the strategy that we've developed together with also with our investors, with my team as well, the management of the company. But I always allow 20% for inspiration, creativity, and also work on educating myself. I think being an active participant in the climate change realm does not allow you to sit on the knowledge that is from 10 years ago. You really constantly need to learn, because there's new technology that is addressing the challenges of our clients. Businesses have a different type of challenge if you have to compare them to maybe an individual or a government. So we really need to be equipped with this knowledge to be able to help them properly to decarbonize. And within the 80%, what sits normally is work related to long-term projects. So this is like the OKRs. Then there's work related to particularly the commercial team, because I lead the commercial activities of the company. So this is sales, customer success, marketing, and also my own team, which is kind of the office of the CEO, but we call it Jasmine. And the Jasmine team essentially is the fourth pillar. And there, like, you have to constantly engage with the team, track all the progress, align targets, and so on. And then the final part is, and I'm the CEO and the co-founder, is really spending time with the team and seeing what are the bottlenecks, how can they be addressed, and so on. And then the 20%, this sits within really learning the new things, speaking to applicants for the Greentech Alliance. I still do the interviews, not all of them, but some, because it allows me to learn, understand what's the problems that these companies face, how can we support them, but also how can we support our clients, because that definitely is super helpful. And I also enjoy quite a lot educating myself about leadership, and this really kind of is one of the passions that I put within these 20% as well.
And do you have any kind of like you mentioned these OKRs and long-term objective aligning with the team, but from a practical standpoint, do you have any kind of a process, like on a weekly basis, like sitting with a cup of tea and just reflecting and trying to figure out what should I spend my next week on?
Yeah. So my agenda, being fully honest, is incredibly packed. Like, I'm booked for months ahead for certain activities. The events I speak at, last year, we counted like more than 100 and something events at which I spoke, which not all of them require traveling because of COVID, but all of them require certain preparation. Like, you need to create slides and so on to tell the story that you have to tell. How I work is actually quite in a basic way. For me, technology is not always the best solution for preparing myself for things. I'm actually incredibly productive on a piece of paper. So sometimes when I just have a big problem, or I need to like design a slide, or like you need to design a story that I have to tell to engage a new partner or whatever, I really sit with a piece of paper and just basically like outline all the ideas that come up. When it comes to the planning of the week, what I usually do is that I spend my Sunday, so the day before the Monday, looking at my calendar, seeing what are the things that actually require certain preparation. At this stage of time, like, I have enough people to help me also prepare certain things, so I don't need to do everything by myself, which is great, because that was incredibly time consuming for a long time, and it didn't allow for a lot of strategy and like kind of inspiration to come up, because you're constantly just like ticking off stuff from the to-do list. And I essentially like list all the stuff that I need to do for the week, and then I give them priority, and then I rewrite them again so that they come in the particular priority. And then I also put some time that I assume this task or this activity is going to take for me to do. And then I also have like a system to say if this is only for me, or if it's for like a multiple people kind of setup where I need to work with someone from my team. And then all of this like process then gets to be brought back on Jira, which is the tool that we use as a company to document things. We also have like some to-do lists and like kind of task lists there. But before it goes on this kind of a software, I really spent a good half an hour, 1 hour to just think through how long is it going to take me to do something. Another productivity trick that is embedded into all of these things is actually my intuition. I have a really good sense of when a certain task needs to be done. And if I have like an immediate sensation that I just don't want to do that, then I know it's not a priority. Of course, like there's circumstances where you just cannot say that because it's just not the case. But I do follow my intuition quite strongly.
I understand there's sometimes a deadline 10 in the morning, and doesn't matter your intuition, you gotta deliver, right? So there's certain situations, but there's a lot of those things that we set as priorities that could be moved around. So now you can start with the other thing and then later come back to the thing that you initially were thinking about doing. So you feel like, okay, now is the time to handle this thing. Or if you've been overdoing certain type of tasks and you get this fatigue and you kind of want to do something different, then you can come back to it. But it's interesting, you did over 100 speeches, which means maybe not so much traveling, but still preparation. You gotta be there. You gotta be sharp. You gotta have a bit of space. So, how important is for you delegation? Have you ever struggled with delegation? Because there's many founders that actually struggle with properly delegating for a bunch of reasons, but one of which is, they can't let go of control, and I can do it better with them and those kind of things. But have you ever struggled with delegation, and what would be your advice to the founders listening, the up and coming founders, when it comes to delegating priorities to your team?
I think the moments when I struggled with delegation were the moments when I was still immature about management. I think there's no good manager that is succeeded without having an incredibly strong team around them. You don't have enough time in the day in order to be able to tick off all the tasks if you do them by yourself, especially as the priorities become even more uh, connected to someone else's agenda. I mean, if you speak about investors and so on, the pressure increases, so you really need to deliver, and you can't build this Jenga kind of tower and then expect for things to really not crumble at some point. I rely on a few very close people that are part of my team. I have a chief of staff, I have a personal assistant, and I also have an associate. These are three people that work very closely with me. And all of them have a big part to play that has to do with optimizing my time, but also supporting me in thinking about things and also delivering on certain tasks. There's things that I have not given up that many founders have at this stage when the company is pre-Series B and so on. And that is not out of the necessity to overmanage, but they just give me satisfaction, so I want to keep them. One example is preparing for the speeches that I do. I might ask my associate to do some research, but the ultimate story that I'm telling is always developed by me and is defined by the latest things that I've learned and how I felt and the temperature that I'm sensing in the community that gives me an understanding of what is the pulse of the day. But what I'm saying now is important to mention that is only true for the last few months. So, and that is not because I wasn't able to delegate, we just didn't have resources for me to have all these people around me. Now we have them because we closed our Series A last year, and I felt comfortable enough that this was the time to be able to delegate resources for me to build my own team, because my time was precious, but everyone else's time is precious. And if I want to be the most useful to the team, I really need to be present. And if I'm continuously doing research for something that I have to do, stuff that I've been doing when I was in the beginning of investment banking or whatever, probably I'm not using to the best extent my time.
That's right. I spoke to a friend of mine a couple of years ago, and Steady FT, he's the CEO of a company called Close. He's a founder, entrepreneur, hustler. So I started following his podcast, which is called the Startup Chat, a great podcast. And one of the episodes, they spoke about the concept of, they called it managing up, and creating a culture where the people that you bring on board, they start managing their managers, and that start managing you. And seems like from what you're describing, you somehow created a culture where people take initiative, they take ownership, and sometimes they manage you up because you are very busy, you have so many things to do, so they need to, to come by and say, hey, Romeo, I need this file, you haven't done this thing, and they start managing you, which is amazing, by the way, for every founder to have such a culture. Would you have any advice on that topic? Do you think that you guys are working in that type of way, and how do you actually build such a culture?
It's all about trust, and it's all about the kind of people you pick already at the recruitment process. We have a very stringent and complex recruitment process that is not to scare away people that want to apply, but we are not the kind of company that needs thousands of people because we need a bunch of intelligent scientists, machine learning experts, which now are going to be at 100 in a few months. But all these people, each one, we've spent a lot of time on selecting, interviewing, seeing if there's a cultural fit, and most importantly, if there's a trust fit, because there's an element that defines the success of the company that is deeply embedded into how much are we able to trust each other from the moment when we start working together. Uh, I'll give a practical example. So the person that is my associate, Kareem, he's someone that is incredibly close to me and we get along super well. He started in Plan A as an intern, and essentially within 3 months after the internship was done, which was like a mandatory one for his university, we offered him a full-time position, and that essentially was there to support me. And what ended up happening was that within the first 3 months, like there was a lot of chaotic movement. He was super smart, but there were still things that he needed to learn. We took the time of the internship, this process. It could be the probation period of someone or whatever, to then just tell them what is the Plan A way of doing things. And then after this period was done, he essentially started growing into this person that I now fully trust in managing my um, agenda, also knowing what kind of things we should prioritize for certain projects, and also has his own projects to manage. This is not something that happens overnight. It's not like someone joins the company and everything is fixed. The first step is really to align people to what you've built in your team as a principle, as an idea, as a vision. And then as a second step, to really give them the space for them to demonstrate their capabilities. And this demonstration is really done by constant reward, in terms of we speak a lot on a weekly basis about the successes and the failures in the company, and we say, okay, well done to this person. And there's no pointing fingers when there's a failure. It's more like, what can we learn from this situation, like where we as a team didn't deliver in the way that we would have wanted to. And then the final kind of element of this is really building a culture of a lot of positivity. I laugh a lot with my team. For me, like, making jokes is literally part of my job. I feel like it's a necessity that you need to deliver on if you really want to be making sure that people like know that whatever the challenge is, we're going to fix it, we're going to figure it out. And it's just such a pleasant environment to exist in, if this exists. So if you put together all these things, like giving the space to people, picking experts with a lot of like utterness in the process, and then having this positive culture, it really builds this sensation of accomplishment in anyone, but also for the company as a whole. And that essentially leads to this managing up culture, because there's trust, there's like reflection, and there's also a lot of equilibrium that is built amongst the stakeholders in the company.
I love it. And when you mentioned it's my part of my job to make people laugh, reminds me of a friend of mine. He's a humor engineer. So
Nice. I want to meet this
basically,
guy.
I'll connect you guys. He's also been on the podcast, so the audience, you guys can go find the episode with Andrew Tarvin. Great episode, and he likes to say, "What gets done, what gets fun, gets done." And his main idea is, because he's coming from corporate, working as an engineer in Procter and Gamble, and he realized so many smart people, and it's just so boring, and
Yeah.
like I don't want to be part of it. But when you kind of make things more fun, more light, more in like even through struggles, when you can crack a joke and you can make it more fun, like not taking yourself too serious, actually things are lighter. Actually, you get more things done. Actually, more people want to come and be part of this journey. So this is such a great reminder for especially the technical founders out there that everything needs to be serious, and you need to, yeah, but it also needs to be fun. Otherwise, why are we doing it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We're all human beings, and I think human beings are emotional animals. We're social animals, and we're dependent on each other so much to feel well. And that's not to say that every single person really needs the acceptance and the appreciation of others. It's more, you give me a smile, automatically my response and my body would want to smile. And that's kind of the way just we're even coded. So if you work with that, not in, of course, a manipulative way, but more like use it as a superpower that every single one of us has, I honestly think that the world is going to be a better place, but also is going to be a place with a lot more productivity, because you wouldn't have spent this extra 5 minutes on thinking, oh, this is so boring, like I just don't want to work with that person or whatever, because that person has given you the impression that this is boring. So I truly believe in the power of positivity and sense of humor. It has a special part in my heart, especially given the context of climate change, because you can't work with a topic that is so daunting on daily basis if you really don't have this get stuff done mindset with a lot of belief in the possibility that there's a positive outcome available.
It truly is finding kind of the right balance, like this part of your job as a founder, as a leader of the company, between keeping things light, having fun, being positive, but not going too far there, unless it's mixed with productivity, getting things done, producing results. Like these things come together. They don't have to be something separate. And when you create such a culture, such a mixture, things start to work. And magic, right? Like people start to trust each other more. People start to come and back the other person, and so on and so forth. So creating such a culture is such an important part for every leader, not just to be an operational leader that's delegating and managing, but actually being the leader that will be understanding when to change the hat, understanding when to take a pause and have a 30-minute conversation with somebody for no reason, which was not in the agenda, but you just need to be there as a leader and listen to the person that's not feeling well or have a challenge or something. Okay, that wasn't on the spreadsheet, but hey, this is what leadership is. You got to be really flexible. And I wonder, Lubomila, if you go back to the beginnings of your entrepreneurial journey, what would you advise yourself, like back in the time that you were starting? What would be the top three pieces of advice that you kind of learned on the way and you would like to share with your former version of yourself?
One of them is definitely don't worry, because I believe in the first 2 years of Plan A, I was constantly worried that something might mess up, that we're gonna not go through the month because there was not enough money. And I think one of the superpowers of entrepreneurs is actually this out of the planet, out of this universe mindset and believe that everything is possible. And I think this is the only reason why companies have gotten so successful, is because beyond the structures in which they operate, outside of the odds of kind of sitting within a certain boundary of what is possible, they've done it. And I think that's one thing that I've learned, and I truly have seen the power of community in that. I've seen the support of my family. I've seen the support of people that decided to mentor me out of nowhere. Like I have at the moment people that mentor me that I'm just like mind blown. How is this even possible? Because they're like the top leaders of the world, and you just need to know that nothing is gonna mess up, because everything is a learning. Everything is really a strong opportunity for you to become the better version of yourself. And even if the company in the shape and form that you've thought of it and dreamt of it doesn't realize, there is a way to go forward. There's possibility for a pivot. There's a possibility for you to maybe sell to someone. There is a possibility for you to just like twist the business model or put it in another geography. But you should never think that the limit is based on what you have set up first, and just constantly reinvent yourself and also the learnings there. Um, a second tip is on get the basics straight. Like I think one of the things that I really pride myself on, so it's not necessarily a tip that I would give myself because we really were focused since the beginning, is like I'm really detail focused. And from day one, planning has had like a lot of like a structured Google Drive and like a very structured place where we held notes and so on. So many companies get to Series A even, and they just don't have their documentation straight, and they end up wasting so much time just to reorganize the house because they don't know where the contracts of the employees are. They don't know where these kinds of things are. And this is a very simple thing to put together in the beginning and just be incredibly structured about it. But I think founders have the responsibility to take care of that. And if you take care of this as fast as possible from the beginning onwards, even when there's one or two people in the company, you're going to make yourself a favor for the future. And then the final one is probably related to learning to ask for help. I was not coming from the corporate world and from like a lot of macho shark environments. I didn't have ever the allowance to ask for help, or didn't feel that it was possible because it was a sign of weakness. I think one of the key learnings when I was building Plan A is that you just ask people for help and they just give it to you. And it's insane. Like, people give time to develop a website for you. People do a lot of things for free if they believe in what you do and if they like you. So I'm sure all of the listeners have people that like them. So rely on these people to actually support you on your journey, because that's going to allow you to keep clean space for the stuff that you're good at, while others help you with things that they're good at, but you're not.
Oh, thanks so much, Lubomila. Wow, what a great, inspiring, but also practical set of advices here. I want to go back to the first one, and many people look at you, Lubomila, and they're like, "Wow, this lady is so confident. She's aiming so high, and she's so ambitious." But I wonder, where is that coming from? Like, could you build this confidence? Did you have to build this confidence? Do you sometimes you're kind of in doubt and you kind of finding to jump into the sea and learn how to swim, or like, where is that coming from? And would you, if you reflect on your journey, kind of find some bits and pieces of where is this coming from? How did I develop this confidence?
I'm a human like any other, and I feel tired, and I feel sad, and I feel happy. There's nothing that is a special source there that is different for anyone else. I think what gives me a lot of confidence is, first of all, my cause. I feel honored to be working on addressing climate change, because I feel like the awareness that I have is something that takes time for people to develop, and I already have it, and I had it since I was 27, and that's something that really has allowed me to mature in as an adult into this mindset and in this value system. The second thing that gives me confidence is that honestly, my life has improved by levels since I started working on climate change, because I've all of a sudden have been 100% surrounded by people that are driven by the belief that the world needs to improve, that are not sleeping, that are not like stuck in the status quo, because this community is so strong in their trust that something better can happen for humanity. And that gives me also this satisfaction that whatever I'm doing is part of a bigger picture that I can contribute to, but I'm not alone. And that's quite often a challenge that many entrepreneurs have, where you feel quite lonely and you're really, yeah, I can speak to other founders, but it's not necessarily that we're driven by the same thing. Whereas in climate change, you really have to be thinking as a community, as a consortium, which is also one of the reasons why the Greentech Alliance is such a powerful community that is a support system for many. And the final one is really related to this basic idea that what if you didn't try? I think that if you constantly think of yourself with a lot of doubts and you're thinking, yeah, I'm standing in front of Elon Musk and I literally have the chance to go and like say hi or whatever, like whatever the opinion you have about him. And what if you didn't try? And like, it just would have been a wasted opportunity that the universe or circumstances gave you. And in my daily activities in Plan A, I'm always thinking like, sure, I'm going to speak to like the boss of the London Stock Exchange. I don't think it's a problem. Like, I'm a knowledgeable person in my own domain. they're knowledgeable in their domain. Probably the best thing that can happen is a synergy. Otherwise, there's a conversation between two intelligent, kind people. So like this is the way I think about that. So taking chances on myself and also on the opportunities that I'm given. So these are the three things that have been kind of driving me. And I think confidence is something that everyone should have, because we're all alive and given one chance to really do something with our existence. And if we don't take it, and we just spend time on the couch watching Netflix, which is someone else's actually success, someone else's entrepreneurial journey, we could have wasted an opportunity to become the best piano player in the world. We could have wasted an opportunity to build the best family, to have the biggest garden, because you actually have a talent for taking care of plants. So I'm just giving profanic and maybe not very clear examples that might fit different people and different agendas, but we all are a success if we decide that we can be.
Yeah, every minute you worry, every minute you gossip, every minute you spend on negative stuff. I mean, it doesn't mean that sometimes you're not feeling down, and we're human beings, right? But if we can teach ourselves and build the muscle to mentally spend the least possible time into this more negative place, and the more time into producing things, asking people, as you said, like, some of the best people in the industry, reach out to them. Like, what's the worst? They probably not reply or tell you, I'm not interested. So what? You're in the same place at the same time. By the way, I'm curious about that. You mentioned that you had a chance to be mentored by some of the some of the best people in your industry. Did you reach out to them? Like, did you meet them at a conference? Like, how did that happen? Like, I think it could be a great advice for anybody looking for a mentor. How do you approach people who are extremely busy, who are at the top of their game in their industry, so that they actually have interest to mentor you?
Going to your first question of how I found these people that mentor me, one is my mom, so I found her in my house. That was a straightforward one. She's in business, so that helps me a lot to think of myself as a businesswoman, and that's actually different than a businessman. And I think her experience also has given me a lot of confidence that a woman is equal to a man. A woman can be a leader and should be a role model, and must be a role model, because we don't have enough of them today. Another one that is like in a super high up position in one of the central banks in Europe. He actually came through an introduction, and he literally, after the first conversation we had, he told me, I want to mentor you, which was I guess my passion for that, because I invited him to become part of some work that we were doing, resonated with him, and he decided that he can be of help. And he has been instrumental to the way I think, sometimes cynically, about the financial industry and how it can change, and what are the obstacles in which it can change. Another person came through a conference at which I was invited to speak, and he was also a speaker, but he's like a god. And essentially, because it was quite funny, because I didn't know who he was, and I started chatting to him because we were like basically in this like speakers lounge and so on, and I knew that he was clearly someone that is speaking at the event, and the event was like super high level. So, okay, an important guy, but I didn't necessarily know his face, and we didn't introduce ourselves to one another to start with, and we just started cracking jokes from the beginning. We were laughing so much, and at some point he basically said, yeah, I advised the Chinese government on their sustainability agenda. I was like, oh, okay. And that kind of kicked it off. And I understood that I obviously have a lot to learn from this person. And ever since, it kind of also organically, I asked him for a few phone calls. And then he literally since then has been of massive support for me. How do you find these people? I think you need to have your requests really like straight but also loose enough so that it doesn't feel like this person is like tied to a commitment or like is pushed against the wall. People have time to have one phone call, use this one phone call to impress them, and then after that decide maybe what you've learned from this call and how you can apply this so that you ask them for another session. I don't believe in this whole idea of like, I want you to mentor me. I mentor a lot of people, and a few of them have asked me to do that. And because of the fact that they had the guts to do it, I've committed. But I feel like it should be also, to some extent, more organic, because people are always going to find half an hour to speak to you. Or 15 minutes if you feel like it's like I don't know, Bill Gates or whatever. Like if it's worth, it's obviously this kind of a person is super busy, but it's worth trying. And if they give you the 15 minutes, just take them, and be there to impress, but also to explain what's your vision, what are your obstacles, because these people need to know how they can be of help. Because if it's just an ambitious person that wants to connect themselves to someone that is successful, then probably there's a bit of a disbalance.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lubomila. And just when you're speaking and sharing all those things, I just want to tell people this is kind of like the law of attraction, right? Like the law of attraction starts with creating clarity, but as opposed to the movie that was very famous 10 years ago, The Secret, you don't have to sit on a couch and wait for something to come to your house. You got to go out there and you got to ask. You got to go out there, you got to take action. You got to go out there, and that's how you attract things. You attract things by your intention combined with massive action in this direction. It might come from a different place. You might get introduced to Bill Gates by somebody, not by sending him an email, but maybe by, I don't know, you met Elon Musk and he kind of said, hey, talk to my friend Bill, right? But that's how you do it at the end of the day. So hey guys, be active, go out there, find these big purposes, Lubomila, and I'm sure things are going to work better for each and every one of us. Lubomila, it's been such a pleasure having you. I have 3.5 more hours of questions, so I'm sure we're going to bring you back at some point. But if you can maybe just wrap up this episode with final words to all the entrepreneurs and people out there. And of course, if you can also include where can people get in touch with you and with Plan A for the Planet.
So to get in touch with me, go on LinkedIn. I am incredibly active there, so would be super happy to connect and also to hear if anyone has any questions or comments. Always there to respond. To wrap it up, I think first of all, thank you for this really pleasant and energy boosting conversation. I think I'm now feeling even more pumped for 2022. It's a good way to start the year. This is my first podcast of the year, so super excited to be kicking off with you. In terms of the kind of ideas that I've shared, I think if there's a common denominator amongst them is that people just need to believe in themselves. We lack confidence as a society, and that is also not unfolding the full potential that we all have. I think the first step to being confident is starting to question which things are hindering you and maybe what is not allowing you. Is it your environment? Is it people that constantly tell you negative things? Is it like actually how you think about yourself? And start working on these things. And then as a second step, surround yourself with people that really educate you, that push you to learn, to be better version of yourself. And finally, be this person for others. Be this person that really helps people define themselves as a success story. Encourage people to think of themselves as a success story, because I think quite often in life, the biggest challenge is actually the side from which you look at a problem or at a situation. Most often you are looking into something that is incredibly positive, that is a big opportunity, but you didn't take a chance on it because you thought that this seems either mediocre or I don't see how this fits my whole bill and so on. Take chances on life, take chances on yourself, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lubomila. Thanks everybody for listening. This is episode 90, which means there's 89 more episodes. If you go to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, any other media podcast platform, I'm super excited and grateful for having Lubomila today. Make sure to check out Plan A for the Planet. And of course, be with us next week because we're going to have another exciting guest, Arden Kass. If you've watched the TV show Billions, he's the hot chick. He's a Wall Street psychologist top level, that's going to share a lot of great advice on how to perform at your best. Thank you so much for being with us, and see you again at the next episode of Productivity Mastery.